Well, those are some pretty nice parks, but you know what they're missing? They are missing these 5 insane tricks to upgrade each and every one of your sandbox parks. So jumping into tip number 1, and that would be to create food trucks, because most of the time what we use in this game, to create opportunities for our guests to eat something is to use these restaurants right here, and they're really the only thing that we have in this game. But in a normal zoo you would see food trucks, so I think that this decoration over here, this little truck that comes with the Malta set, or just the truck that comes already with the base game, are really nice decorations to create food trucks in this game, and just to build smaller little food areas, because that's what you would see in a normal zoo, and just to switch it up from these bigger shops, and yeah, to build areas like this. And I think that can always create a really nice look. And also, because we're in a sandbox, we don't have to, cater to the guest needs. We can just build something that looks nice and looks like it would be in an actual zoo or theme park. And tip number 2 is for building habitats for small species, because as you can see, if I build a habitat, for example, for the Chunkingosaurus, just using the regular fences in the game that are always really tall, doesn't work at all, and just looks weird, the fence is just way too big for this little animal. But then when I switch over to using these little walls right here, and also using the containers as a back wall, this whole habitat looks a lot more convincing and like something that would actually be built in a real zoo to house animals of this size, because they can't even get over this barrier. And then in the same way that I like to use the concrete wall in the back of bigger habitats, I like to use the container as the back of this habitat to sort of create like, a little closed off area, so the dinosaurs aren't visible from, every direction. And if you just place the containers like this, they look really convincing and just look like some kind of little metal barrier that you would see in a zoo to hold in small animals like this and in the back of the habitat. Now the next trick is to combine different elements in this game to create really nice little garden areas. For example, just these 3 to 4 pieces right here. Basically you create a cutout in your path, then you line it with the concrete barrier. It doesn't matter what shape you have, and then you fill it in with these tropical ferns. You can also put these lamps in the corner, and this is mostly inspired by Python X35, who really puts a lot of detail in his parks, and sort of came up with this trick. I kind of expanded it with using these little planter pots that we later got in an update, and just filling in the little gaps that stay in between the ferns with this little planter, and I think that makes it look even better. It takes a lot of time, but it's worth it in my opinion, because it always just looks really cool and really satisfying. Next, you can also use rocks to create little rock gardens. I personally like to also use different rock colors and alternate them, for example like this, to make a little pattern and make the rock garden even more interesting. But you can also just take the same rock and place it, everywhere, and create a rock garden. Combine everything to make little garden sections in your park. Combine the little rocks, combine some of these bushes, some of the ferns, and a tree in the middle, for example. And I just, with this, I just want to say that you can use all of these elements that you would normally use for creating habitats, and just using them as decorations in your park. And I think that can work out really nicely and create awesome garden sections like this, for example. The next trick is a Legion Yapper special, I would say, and that is the Sauropod feeders, basically bringing them back from the first game. And the way that I do this is that I first, in the area where I want to have my Sauropod feeders, I place down a lot of this foliage brush, for example, which is what the Brachiosaurus eats. And then I take these aviary perches, and then I look for, some of the best trees to do this with. For example, like this one. And then I place the perches basically right inside of these plants right here, these trees, and that ends up, in the end, it creates a really nice look, and basically ends up looking like sauropod feeders, in some capacity. And then after you have placed down, your perches inside of these plants in the areas that you want, you just delete all of this, and then you come back with the brush, just sort of trying to create just these trees at one point right here, and then they will spawn back with a little bit of foliage right here, but that's what we don't really want. No, you really want to just get that one tree, and instead of having these trees look out of place in the biome that you're trying to achieve with your Brachiosaurus, for example, you can just build the sauropod feeders, which looks, in my opinion, a lot nicer. For example, this one, it really just looks like some kind of feeder you would see in a giraffe exhibit in like a real zoo, and these do actually work. Like the Brachiosaurus can feed from these, and it looks really nice. Another really fun trick for your parks, if either you need to finish your park and you don't want to build another habitat, Or maybe you just, want to breathe some life and some interest into your parks. You could just take a habitat, and instead of building a habitat, you could just turn it into a construction site. And if you just cleverly use some of these decorations and basically fill in most of the habitat with the dirt brush and use a little bit of elevation, make it a bit hilly, I think it looks a lot like a construction site. And now the only thing left to do is to place some flags next to the fence, and now it looks like just something you would see in a zoo where, there's an unfinished habitat and there are like some signs there saying who sponsored the habitat and saying what is being built there and what the guests can expect to be built in the zoo in the future. And now in a couple of minutes we have built something that looks straight out of a real zoo and fits in really nicely, and it breathes, in my opinion, a lot of life into the whole park. And it's also a fun little life hack. If you don't want to finish another habitat, you can just build a construction site, and it doubles as two things in that way. And those were my 5 tricks to make your sandbox park stand out from every other. So if you enjoyed them, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and check out this next one to help you with starting your parks. Anyway, see you guys in the next episode of Jurassic Evergreen Park probably, and bye bye.